Alrighty, so we should now be live, and those of you who are already there, I can see you in the chat room. You should hear me, and you should see the countdown. So if you can't, I'm speaking to myself, but as usual, those of you who know the routine, just drop us a comment in the chat there so I can see it, so that I know you can see and hear things happening. And then that's that technical side of things all good. Thank you very much. All right, that's brilliant. Thank you to those of you who just put a comment in there. It's always nice to know the technical side of things is all working before we get properly underway. Really looking forward to this one. It's going to be different, but it's not going to be all tears. There's going to be a lot of motivation out of this one. This is why I wanted to speak to Imelda. This is a good story, and I think it's going to be it's good for everyone to hear this. So yeah, sit back, get your tea, get your coffee, whatever you want, and just enjoy the powerhouse that is Imelda Bell. Do you know, every time I play that BenQ video, no matter how many times I test it, when I do the testing, it starts from the beginning. When I go live, it starts halfway through. Why is that? Who knows? But listen, hey, thank you so much for joining me wherever you are in the world. I see there's people from all over the place again. I see you in the chat, but thank you for tuning in. I've had a couple of weeks off, but my God, has it been an interesting, motivational, wow, emotional couple of weeks. But wow, good stuff over the last couple of weeks. I'm sure at some point you'll get to hear about it. But that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. We're going to have Imelda Bell with us very, very soon. An incredible story, lots to talk about. I've got so many questions for her that I want to put to her. Things that I didn't even know. There's things I found out since I was researching her that I never knew, which is very interesting, and more since I spoke to her earlier today. But before I bring her in, let's just go through just a little bit of admin. The first one to let you know about, obviously, because it's only 8 days until it kicks off. It's 8 days to go until the next Photoshop Virtual Summit, number 6. Is fast approaching, November the 11th to the 15th. You can watch it completely for free if you go to this link here. You can also get details there of the VIP Access Pass, which is where, because ordinarily with a free pass, you can watch all of the classes, all of the content throughout the week for 48 hours from the time that it's released. VIP access gives you so much more, but that's, click on the link, you'll see more details about that. Interesting one that's come out this past few days is that those of you, obviously you saw the BenQ advert then, those of you who've got a BenQ display, and it might be one of the PD displays, that's one of their displays for, I've just seen my wife's in the chat as well. Imelda. I know Imelda's in the green room. This is the first time ever my wife's tuned in. But those of you who've got a PD display, the one that's specifically for designers, videographers and what have you, just to let you know that BenQ have now updated their Palette Master Ultimate software, which means you can now calibrate your PD display with that software. It used to be just the SW displays. Now it's PD displays. I guess to some people it sounds like I'm talking a foreign language here, doesn't it? But those of you with a PD display will know what I mean. Another little thing to let you know about my friend is in the chat. I've seen him there, Jean-Francois Leisure. He's in the chat room there. He messaged me, I think it was last night, to say that he'd done a slideshow to music of his own images. Now, those of you who tune in regularly, and you'll see one very soon, you'll know that every time I have a guest, I get them to send over images and I create a slideshow with what I think and hope is relevant music and put it together. And it's, it seems to go down pretty well. Jean-Francois did his own with his own images, and the feedback he kind of had from it was that it was a hugely interesting and kind of motivational little thing that he did for himself to see his pictures in a totally different light. So I want to just let you know that, because it might be something that's worth doing for yourselves. If you get a spare sort of half hour to an hour, try putting your own slideshow together. It makes you see your own images completely differently when you see them with music. So thank you for that, Jean-Francois. And the last thing, which I never seem to do that often, is just to say, just get your cursor over that subscribe button and just click on subscribe. It should say follow. I say that every time. It doesn't cost you a penny. It just lets you know when there's going to be some pre-recorded videos and also these live broadcasts coming up. It lets you know when those are happening. Right. My wife has just put here, she says she's usually cooking my chicken. That's why she's not tuning in. Oh, man. Why do I feel nervous now? My wife's in the other room watching this. I don't know. But listen, anyway, enough of that. Let's get Imelda Bell in a moment. First of all, let me show you her slideshow. Now, I was speaking to Imelda earlier on today, and I said to her, I admitted, this is probably the hardest one that I've worked on. And it's not because of, putting all the stuff together. It was choosing the right music, because, you'll have seen the actual countdown image there. You'll see images coming up in a moment. The kind of images that we're going to talk about, the project, what Imelda went through. It's to try to make sure you get the music right for the images was a real bit of a worry. So I think I got it right, and I'm really hoping I have, because I'm going to be looking at the corner of my eye at Imelda to see if she's agreeing with me on this one. But I'm going to play this for you now. It's not the kind of slideshow where I'm expecting you to be motivated. I didn't want the music to distract from the images, so it's just calming music, just so that you just take in the pictures. But look at the pictures. I mean, they're hard hitting. It leaves nothing to the imagination on some of them, but the faces, they just draw you in. It's a really powerful portrait. So I'm going to play that now, then we'll get Imelda in. So this is the slideshow I've created for Imelda. I've watched that so many times, but when I had Imelda, God, man, that's got me there. Wow. Before I bring Imelda in, let me just say this. Imelda is an author, photographer and conservationist. A cancer survivor whose aim through her photography, exhibition and book, Facing the Monster, which I have a copy of here, is to help people and provide comfort wherever she can. She's a trustee and director of Rhino Revolution UK, who uses her photography, graphic design and writing skills to help make a difference, and through her Big Topics for Little People series of books, aims to help explain difficult topics such as the coronavirus, cancer, and the death of a loved one to young children. Man, I apologise, I just couldn't help myself then, because seeing Imelda in my corner of my eye as those images were coming through. But let me unmute her and bring her in. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Wonderful.
Wow. Well,
no, it was pretty intense seeing the pictures.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
One thing that really struck me when they were going through, because I'm seeing you at the corner of my eye there, because I know that obviously we were speaking earlier on and you mentioned about some of the people that you photographed in addition to your self-portraits, that they're no longer with us. And I just happened to catch your reaction on a couple of those portraits there that gave me the nod that those were the ones that you'd mentioned. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. But I know that this is obviously something that you've talked about a lot, but I've got to say, each and every time, no matter how often you talk about it, I think you're incredibly brave, and I think you should be applauded to speak about something so personal and something so incredibly scary, I guess, as well.
Yeah, thank you.
But before we get into it, let's just, because there's, like I said, there's so many things I didn't know about you. I thought I kind of knew an idea of what you did, and then I realised how much time's gone by and how many things have changed for you now. But let's talk about talk about the photography side of it. Let's get to the stage there. Just let us know where did that come from? I know things have changed, but where did that come from? Where did Imelda Bell, the photographer, how did that all start?
I always liked creating imagery, and I can't actually remember what first got me. I went to a newborn photography course, and quite enjoyed that, and thought, you know what, I want to improve. I want to keep getting better. At the time, my kids were growing up. I'd left my job working in London, so it just seemed like a good direction to go where I could explore my creative side. And obviously, I then predominantly became a children's portrait photographer. Did some newborn stuff, but my heart was really with slightly older kids.
Yes.
And yeah, I just went through that. And then where the cancer portraits came in was because obviously I was diagnosed just before Christmas in December 2017. And immediately I knew I was going to lose my hair. I was going to have a single mastectomy. I was going to have chemo, radiotherapy, the whole works. And the treatment went on for 2.5 years. But because obviously when you have chemo, you have no immune system. It was prior to COVID, and we installed a hand sanitizer in our hall. So anyone who came in to see me had to sanitize before they came in. Kids, when they got off the bus from school, had to sanitize so they didn't pass anything on to me. But obviously the impact on my business was that I wasn't allowed contact with kids. So my business obviously had to take second place to my health. But I found I wanted a way to express myself. And initially it started through self-portraits. I did have the words because obviously I did keep the diary and I did use the words, but photography had always been my outlet, and I wanted to keep that going. So it started with individual portraits, and I just wanted to give people an idea of all the different things you go through. I know before I was diagnosed, I thought chemo, I'm going to be bedbound for months at a time, and you have visions. You see it in the movies with these really poorly people who are just going through so much, and I thought that would be 24/7 throughout treatment. I didn't realize that you have ups and downs. So although you have incredibly hard days, you can still live
Yeah,
your
yeah,
life. And on
yeah.
the days you're feeling better, you get on and you do things. So the days I felt better,
Well,
I got on and showed those emotions in photography.
I want to dive into the, certainly the project that you did and how that progressed and what came from it, but also, as I know, because obviously I checked with you earlier on, if you're happy for us to talk a little bit about the diagnosis and stuff, because I want this to be more than just photography, because I think your story is incredibly powerful and also inspiring. The strength that you had to do what you did, despite going through what you were still getting out there and doing these photographs, which ultimately were to help and support other people in the time that you were in need of help and support. But like you say, maybe the photography was your support. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah, very much
before
so.
we get to that, I know obviously now the photography's kind of taken a bit of there's a bit of a change now, because anybody who looks at your website, obviously I'll put the details up here, they'll be on the blog post and the description as well. When they look at that now, what they might notice is that the way you're described, and I did that in the actual bit when I introduced you there as well, that it's not photographer first, it's author, photographer and conservationist. So now how was the photography kind of, where are we at now with the photography with you?
I'm largely doing photography for my own pleasure, either for, just by the way, we rebranded. We are now Rhino Rescue UK, not Rhino Revolution UK.
Oh, right, okay.
So we're right. That's obviously somewhere I haven't managed to, it's slipped up where I
Yeah.
haven't changed it.
I'll let you know
Better
later.
get onto that. Thanks. But yeah, I obviously with my portraits, I used to take pictures of animals, and then I did a lot of Photoshop, digital artwork, including animals with kids. And from that, it got to me knowing people at our local wildlife park, getting more involved and realizing that actually I could make a stand for the animals and teach people a bit about the animals as well as taking the kids' photos.
Right.
And actually, interestingly enough, as a child, as a young, late teens, I guess, I wanted to either be what at that point would have been called a ranger, which is now is a field guide out in the field in Africa, because I grew up in South Africa, or a wildlife filmmaker. But at the time was a different era back in the late 80s in South Africa, and those were not suitable jobs for women. So I put them by the side. But now, because I'm not doing the business, I still really enjoy taking the photos of animals. And I started to do bits of digital art with just animals, which then got me noticed by what at the time was Rhino Rescue UK. And they contacted me. It was a Christmas photo I'd done of a rhino with a Santa hat and snow and a Christmas tree. And they said, "Oh, would you mind? We're a charity. Would you mind if we used the image?" And I said, "No, of course not." I said, "Anything I can do to help, let me know." And our relationship grew from there. And eventually I was asked to become a trustee. And then I've sort of got known through different conservation organisations and done bits and pieces of work for.
So amazing how the photography can just lead to other things, isn't it? Without expecting them to as well. You just do this stuff and it just seems to happen. So, all right, we'll talk about the conservation stuff as well, because I'm very interested in that. But let's just kind of go back to the original kind of plan, if you like, about this, me wanting to speak to you anyway, because I'm big time when it comes to projects. I believe that they're massively important when it comes to developing yourself. But let's talk about your journey, your cancer journey, for want of a better way of describing it. Take us through that, because obviously you had your diagnosis. I've read your book. You got your diagnosis, and then as time goes on, you then say that you wanted to start doing these self-portraits. Tell us what was the motivation. First of all, for doing self-portraits of yourself while you're going through all this awful treatment and stuff.
It was a way for me to keep in touch with photography. It was a way for me to explore my emotions, think about, obviously it developed into a project, but a way for me to still be doing something that I felt was useful. And that I obviously at the time I didn't intend it. It wasn't my initial thought was just self-portraits, and maybe these could help people seeing the different aspects, the different sides of cancer treatment, and that it's pretty awful at times, but you can still have a good laugh, and you're still you under it all. So I just wanted to show that, and then I showed them to my oncologist. And he said to me, oh, these could be so helpful for other people. And I then thought, right, well, why not? Let's go for it. So I put an advert out in various cancer groups saying I was going through treatment myself. I was a photographer, and if anybody wanted to come into the studio, I would do free portraits. We'd have a chat about cancer, and obviously because I was at the time I was bald. I think by the end of it, I started to grow my hair back towards the end. But it was pretty obvious I was going through something as well, and I think that really gave me the rapport with people.
Yes. Yeah. Connection. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure I could have done it, and I'm not sure I would have known how to speak to people if I hadn't been in the same position. So it helped me to connect with other people going through something similar.
I guess in a way as well, when you've got somebody who isn't experiencing what those other people are experiencing, it would seem a bit strange in some ways for them to be approached to say, "Can I take your portrait?" I guess, but I think there's with you going through it, and you wouldn't really need to explain it, would you? Do you know what I mean? It's a case of
No.
I know what you're going through. It's just, there's a common bond here, and this is a very, very weak kind of comparison, But I guess it was like years ago when I first started out doing the photography, and I was photographing physiques back then. That was my thing, because that was my what I knew about doing the bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So for me to speak to people in the gym was easy because I hope they could tell that I trained. Do you know what I mean? So it makes it easier. So when you do have that common bond with people, I get that it would be easier for you to speak. But when it comes to self-portraits, I mean, were they something that you did alone, or did you have some help? And what kind of setup were you using and stuff like that?
I was completely alone. My studio is a glorified shed in my back garden. And I just thought about what I needed and what I could do. Obviously, that with the hairbrush, there was a bit of comedy in that. I don't need this hairbrush anymore. But I went through how I could represent things, and for instance, the metallic taste that you get in your mouth. I had it was disgusting. It was a food dye, a silver food dye, which I coated in my tongue and then let drip out so I could take the photos as it dripped. But it tasted absolutely revolting, and I think I had a black tongue for about 4 days afterwards. But so it was just going through and thinking, what can I do to represent this emotion, this feeling, or this side effect? The hard ones were the crying. But I think if I'd had somebody with me, I probably wouldn't have let the emotions go quite so much. Even if it had been a member of my family, I think I would have held back. But because I was on my own, I could take myself to a place where I'm with the crying pictures. I actually did take myself to a pretty dark place. It was a song that I used to play. Sadly, my brother died when he was 19, and there was a song I associated with him. So I played that, and I actually did take myself to being pretty miserable in the studio. So the tears were real; they were genuine.
I did genuinely wonder that as well. When it's, when you're having your portraits taken, because I was guessing you weren't, theatrically trained. So I was thinking, how have you done that? And it would make sense that if you're on your own and you are able to take yourself to those dark places, and you're going to get emotional, aren't you?
So so the emotions did come out, and obviously music creates emotion as well. So that song, like you said, you look at your photos with music, which is actually interesting. That's something I do even with my wildlife photos and holiday photos. I always edit them to music because I find it's a good way to look back at them, and it does. The music evokes something beyond just the imagery. So the music helped me to get into a miserable place or a happy place or whatever emotion I wanted to portray at the time.
And when it comes to doing the personal stuff, the self-portraits, I guess there's two questions I'd like to know answers to, really. First of all, how did that impact you? What kind of impact did it have on you doing self-portraits to tell these stages of what you're going through?
It was it was actually incredibly cathartic. I was going to say it was very cathartic. It was, for me, it was a release. It was, I could stand in the studio and you can see in one of them I'm really swearing and and screaming, but I could do it. That's the one. But I could do it in the studio, and in a way, it helped to release those emotions. So I think it was a healing process for me as well.
So when it comes to speaking to other people, then, because I know that when you were going into hospital and stuff like that, and there was people there that you were speaking with, wasn't there? And you were spoken then, but how? I mean, was that always your intention to do that, or was it like, I'm going to do self-portraits because then that's going to give me something to be able to show other people the kind of stuff that I'd like to do with them? Or was it something that you just thought, actually, later on, do you know what? I should do a project on this. How did that work?
It was because of my oncologist saying it might be nice to help other people and let other people. And to be honest, each shoot, I did more chatting than I did photography. Because we'd go into the studio, we would just chat, and obviously you're not going to walk straight into a studio and shove a camera in someone's face and take a photo and get a good emotion from them.
Yeah.
So it was very much a slow process of sitting and having a chat and saying, well, what emotions, is there anything particular you would want to get across in a portrait and that sort of thing. So we would have a quite an in-depth chat. And I would obviously set up my lights and stuff. I have got like a mannequin head, so I could set the lighting up roughly where they were going to be to start with, and then I would actually just use a trigger on my camera so that I could keep eye contact with them and talk to them without me disappearing behind the camera every 5 minutes.
Wow, that's really interesting to see here as well, because people who've followed what I do and maybe tuned into these on a fairly regular basis now, they would have heard me talk about the style of my doing portraits when I was doing the veterans, and that was very similar to what you're saying there, that maintaining that eye contact is massively important. I found that certainly with the veterans, but my God, even more so for how you would find it for people that are going through what they were going through, because they're incredibly vulnerable at that stage. Now I think it's really brave of people as well to be photographed.
I would say to them, look, if you get emotional or whatever, depending on what the emotion was, I will just flash every now and again. Just ignore it. Just chat to me. We'll carry on. The flash will go, and I will be taking photos, but we just want to have a chat and a conversation. What comes out, and we'll see what we end up with. So it was very much, I guess, like a mutual therapy session where we could myself and the person I was photographing can get things off our chest.
And what kind of reaction did you get then, not just when you're doing the portraits, but when you eventually those people get to see their portraits, what kind of reaction would you get?
It was all a very positive reaction, because everyone, I would capture whatever the emotion was first, and then we would do something fun. And obviously some of them I actually ended up using a fun photo. The lady with the flowers, that was a maternity or newborn prop, I think. That's the one. And she is a larger than life character. She wants to have fun, and she didn't want to appear miserable, and she just wanted to be out there. So she tried it on, and we said, you know what, why not? Let's just go with it.
I remember the bit in the book where I read her part, and she was saying that, I think it's in the last part of what she says, that her portrait is that she wants people to be able to see that she's still a party girl at heart, or something like that. Do you know what I mean? And it really does show it, doesn't it? It really, really does.
Yeah.
Well,
that is the thing with whoever it is. You, underneath it all, even when you look like you're at death's door, you're still you. There's still that your personality in there, the person in there. You're still the person you were before cancer. Cancer doesn't define you.
Do you? Well, nothing to do with photography here then, but by you saying that, do you mean that people, when they hear that you've got cancer and you're going through that kind of treatment and stuff, do you find that people treat you differently? Is that what you're saying there, or?
Some people, yes. It's to be honest, it's like with any trauma or a difficult subject, different people react in different ways.
Yeah, they don't know what to say or how to say it, and
No, exactly. So yeah, it was, I don't know, it was just it was emotional. Obviously, we wanted to end on a high note each time. So even if it was something where we both ended up in tears while we were doing the photos, we would then just mess around and have a bit of fun. And I'd do, they've all seen copies of one fun photo and one of the ones that went in the book. But we just wanted to end on that high note and think, let's just have a laugh, and we're in the studio. So
that the portraits then. So Was this ever in the plan? Having a writing a
No,
book?
one of the ladies in my book, she was a she had a children's model agency, and I think she's done movies and stuff, writing books now, but she then became a publisher, and she asked if I would then consider putting my experience into a book. So it grew from there.
Wow.
So yeah,
I mean, it is.
initially, and I happened to have written a diary as I was going along, because the days I didn't feel like being in the studio, I would write what I was going through. So that just became a culmination.
I'm going to put details
book.
about. I'll put details of this on. It's called "Facing the Monster: A Photographic Story of the Faces of Cancer," and it is, it's a hard-hitting topic. But me and my wife were talking about this earlier on. The fact that you've done it as a diary, along with the images, for anybody that's, sadly going through that same thing, or just been diagnosed and they're scared about the journey ahead. Something like this, for somebody to write it down, not only does it prepare them for what's ahead, despite what the medics will say and doctors will say and all that kind of stuff. When it's from somebody who's walked the walk, it can't be better. You know what I mean? It can't be better than that. But also, if anything, I guess this is there's hope there, isn't there? Because this is a book written about going through cancer, written by a survivor. Do you know what I mean? Someone who survived it, so it gives you that hope. But it is incredibly powerful stuff. Not, we've already seen your images with music, but images with the diary at the same time. It's just really powerful. And obviously you've got the stuff.
And obviously I stopped writing the diary once my hair had started growing back. So I still had more treatment. I had treatment every 6 months for I think it was 2.5 years. I've forgotten now, actually. But I just wanted to end the diary on here I'm growing my hair back, things are getting back to normal. So although there was still the treatment going on, I just wanted to end it at a point where, we're looking forward now and we've got past the worst of it.
Yeah.
So that's why I ended it there.
Now, am I right? Actually, one thing about the book, before we move away from the book, it says here, by Imelda Bell, and then underneath it says, foreword by Benedict Cumberbatch. Now, how on earth did that happen?
Well, I was trying to find a load of celebrities and look at people who might have some connection to cancer or cancer charities. And I wrote, I don't know how many letters to various agents and various people. And I was actually, I was with my daughter, just ordered a gingerbread latte and Costa coffee. And I checked my emails on the phone and I embarrassed my daughter because I think I squealed in the middle of Costa. Because she'd written the agent, his PA had replied and said, "Yes, I'll do it." So,
wow.
So yeah,
That's
it was
incredible.
pretty amazing. So I never got to meet him, but obviously I.
That's pretty cool, though, isn't it? Really, when you think somebody like that really is, and he's got his little piece in the start and also on the back here as well. So,
but I'll put I was sent the headshot.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'll put all the details of this in the I'll put all the details of this in the description and in the blog post as well. But also talk about the writing, because this is some. Go on, sorry.
I was just going to say the reason it's Facing the Monster is because the series of books is the Monster series. So she'd written a book on cancer. The Monster in Mummy was the first one, and she kept the monster theme, so it was the Monster series.
Oh, right,
Which is why it's Facing the Monster. Because I actually called as a photography panel, I called it Faces of Cancer, but we changed it to fit in with her series to be Facing the Monster.
Now you also, if I recall this, I didn't mention this earlier on, but I seem to remember that there was some kind, because obviously back then you were doing, heavily involved in the photography circuit, competitions and qualifications and stuff like that. Wasn't there something that came from, because you did like a exhibition-y thing, or did you have some kind of award for these images? Is that right?
It was my fellowship panel. First of all, I exhibited it at a Kent, because I live in Kent at the moment, but a Kent breast cancer event, big charity ball thing they had at Leeds Castle. So they had it on display there for me. And then I went on to develop it for my fellowship panel. Actually, originally I went, I was with the Guild, the MPA, and the SWPP. So eventually I put it through with all of them. But it actually initially went through as an associate panel for the MPA, but it was upgraded to a fellowship, which was really nice.
Wow.
Still remember walking in and I said, I'm afraid that you've not been successful at gaining your associate with the MPA. And I went, yeah, okay. I was waiting for a why and what I'd done wrong. And it's like, because we've decided to upgrade you to a fellowship.
Wow.
So I got the fellowship and then I did submit it as a Master Craftsman panel for the Guild, which was awarded, and also for my SWP, PP. Fellowship panel, so I got it with all, and it went on. It did. I was awarded the best fellowship of that year. Can't actually remember what year it was now, but with the MPA, so I got that award at their awards. And sadly enough, I was away at the awards ceremony. I got home the next day, literally walked in and had an email to say that one of the guys in the panel had passed away that night before. So the night I was at the awards, sadly he died.
Wow,
and
that, if I'm right, is that Paul? Was that Paul? Was it?
No, it was Scott.
Scott.
He's right. Yeah, right. That's it. Yeah, that's Scott.
This gentleman
yeah.
Here.
So, yes. Yeah. At the time I met him, he's the only one. Actually, there's a whole story behind that shot. He's in a wheelchair, and I've got steps down to my studio, so I couldn't get him in. So I had to go to him, and I arrived. Had my backdrop, which I'd taken along, went to set it up and realised I'd left the pole at home. So I had to kind of drape the backdrop over his sofa, and then I had to edit the top half of it back in afterwards. So yeah, we did have a bit of a giggle with that one.
Bless him.
But yeah, I managed to to make it work. But yeah, note to self: when you're going on location, make sure you've got everything with you.
Yeah.
Saves yourself a job later.
Now, can you imagine it nowadays? AI just filling. How easy would it have been then, eh?
It would, wouldn't it? Yeah. No, I had to draw all the hairs back in and everything by hand.
So youngsters nowadays don't know how easy they've got it, do they?
They don't, do they?
Listen, one thing I wanted you to, I know I asked you this earlier on, but in the book here, because it is an incredible read, it really is. But I know that obviously there's the self-portrait bit, and then there's the sections where each of these people here that you photographed, they wrote sections for their part in the book. But there was one lady here, and I think, is it Michelle?
Yes.
This lady here, who you said that she wasn't comfortable or didn't want to write anything or whatever.
Ironically, her portrait was entitled Hope. But when I contacted everybody to say this is now becoming a book, because obviously initially it wasn't, so obviously I had to get everyone to sign releases that I could use the photos, and I said, would you like to write something to accompany your photo? And she just said she wasn't in a good place at the moment and didn't want to feel up to doing it. So her page, I mean, she literally said, all I can say is a survivor of grade 3 cancer and still fighting the fight.
Right.
So I then wrote a poem about my diagnosis to fill in on her page.
Would you read that out for us? Is that all right? If I'm going to bring a picture up.
Yeah, last time I read this was at the book launch, and my husband dissolved into tears while I read it. So yeah, okay. So it's called Diagnosis. I hear the words, it's cancer. My mind goes blank. I can't speak. I can't think. I am dazed and numbed by the discord of my emotions. Fear creeps into my soul and grasps my heart with an icy hand and a vice-like grip. Dread climbs from my toes, clawing at my sinews until it reaches the tip of my head, where it explodes in a frigid torrent of terror. Sweat trickles down between my shoulder blades and puddles in the small of my back. My breath restricts as panic rises from the deep pit of my churning stomach, and a moan ascends from the boiling maelstrom below. My head buzzes as thoughts rub together in a frenzied dance to the humdrum of my heartbeat and the whoosh of the blood pounding in my ears. My knees start to tremble and buckle, and I stand outside my body, detached and severed, looking in at the turbulent furor which threatens to engulf my existence. I want to shout, I want to run, but I'm rooted to the spot, cold and paralyzed, stuck at this juncture with the heinous cackle of this vile disease echoing in my every thought.
Wow. Wow, do you know, as you were reading that just then, I was looking through some of the comments as well, Imelda, and look at this one here. This one here from a guy called Andy, who's just posted this. My wife was diagnosed a few weeks ago, had surgery 2 days ago, and I just ordered the book. Thank you, Glyn and Imelda. Wow.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's why that means a lot. That's why I wanted it out there along with the photos, and hopefully, wish her well on as she goes through her treatment, and hopefully that will be a little bit of comfort. And I mean, look at me now, bald.
Exactly.
I probably
Look
had
at
more
those
hair the
locks.
day I was born, actually, but it stayed curly though. I had dead straight hair before chemo, and I just get ringlets.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting,
It was
isn't
dead
it?
straight. But that's exactly why I want it out there. If it can slightly ease somebody's journey, then even if it's only 1 or 2 people, at least I know I've touched a few people and made a difference.
There's a comment here from Judy Linda, who's a regular watcher of this, which I really appreciate, Judy, for doing that. She's put here, the photos of the men are so special. I know most folks do not realise that men can get breast cancer. Was there any difference between the men and women when it came to taking the images? Good question.
Not really, because obviously he spoke about the fact that he wanted it out there because it's not something a lot of men are even aware they can get it. So in a way, I probably had more of a connection with him because we'd had the same type of cancer, even though he was a man. Whereas some of the other people, I mean, obviously I did connect with all of them because we all, and the journeys are similar depending on what chemo and what you're going through. But he was just so determined to make men aware that breast cancer exists in men as well. And I actually know quite a few men now that have had breast cancer. So men do need to be aware of it.
Absolutely, yeah. You're going to get to see some of the comments that are coming in. I'm trying to star some of them, Imelda, but it's just some lovely stuff here. One of my closest friend here, Ian Monroe, he's put, I lost my sister at 40 to breast cancer that spread, and those words have just reinforced how tough my sister was.
Oh.
Wow. Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Sorry, so sorry for your loss.
But on a slightly different note, there's a question I noticed from the very same person, Ian. Let's get this in. Let's get some photography back in here, shall we? He's put, as someone who has struggled to get that quality black and white work, I'd love to know how you go about making and knowing that it's going to be black and white piece. There you go. There's one for you.
Okay. Well, I still shoot. I don't turn the black and white mode on in my camera or anything. I do still shoot it in color. And then obviously there's a lot more post-processing than there would be in a normal color image. Normally I would be editing, smoothing skin and making people look beautiful, but I wanted these to be raw and nitty-gritty. So I think black and white helped for that. I think black and white also helps to take the emotion out of it. But I just wanted sort of quite contrasty, punchy images. So there was a lot of dodging and burning to go on, and obviously playing with the sliders to adjust which tones I wanted to come out as darker and lighter within the photograph. And I know in a lot of the photographs, to me, my freckles are really obvious. I know I have got a lot of freckles, but it obviously, again, through the processing, I just punched up the sort of browny reddy tones and got them as darker and much more contrasty than they actually are. And I just think that helped. Lighting, I mean, I used different lighting depending on whether it was a man or a woman as well. So I tried to use a variety. I didn't want to light everybody the same. I wanted different, so softer lighting for a sort of softer, more feminine portrait, or much starker, a bit more backlighting with some of the men, just so there was a difference in not just the emotion, but also in, I felt like was trying to use the lighting to enhance the emotion and the portraits, and deciding how masculine or feminine I wanted that lighting to be, depending on the subject.
That's interesting you say that, because when you look at the portraits, even though you're using a different lighting on certain people for certain reasons, that they're from the same photographer and they're from the same set. Despite the the subject matter, you can tell that it's from the same person. So that's really interesting, that, because ordinarily with a series, you'd have that uniformity across them. But very interesting that you chose not to.
Yeah, that's where I think the black and white, because I felt everybody's story is different. Although there's a commonality through it, everybody's an individual, everybody's story is different. So how I approached each subject was slightly different. I mean, there are some where there's only so many ways you can light a subject, but I don't know how many I think it was 23 or 24 I photographed in the end, apart from myself. And yeah, I'm not that creative with lighting, so I didn't know 23 different ways.
But this is what it proves. It's not, we go to, you go to photography functions, don't you? And you'll see somebody on stage saying one light photography, then you'll see another stage, 2 lights, and then one light, 2 light, 3 lights. It's like, oh God, blimey, do you know what I mean? Whereas I know that I stripped everything back and went down to using just 1 light, and only now, more recently, am I experimenting just for a certain look with more than 1 light. But your project shows, completely that it's not just about the lighting is secondary, isn't it? It's the thing about your portraits is you don't look at them straight away, and I mean this in the best possible way. You don't look at them and go, oh wow, look at the expressions. You don't ignore the photography. It's great, but the first thing you look at is the person. You're drawn into that, which surely as a portrait photographer, that's the number 1 goal anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yes. But I kind of feel that the choice of lighting, you should choose your lighting to suit your subject. There's no one recipe fits all. I think you've got to look at what you're trying to achieve, what the emotion is, how harsh or soft you want it to be. So the lighting adds to the story.
Absolutely.
Rather than just lighting a subject.
I'd agree with that. 100%. All right, well, listen, let's have a break. I told you this would go quick. Look, 47 minutes has gone just like that. And here's me saying, halfway through, we'll have a bit of a break, so you can have a drink. Right, let's have a quick break now, and then we'll come back, because obviously there's a couple more things I want to ask you about that, but I want to get on to let's talk, bring in some of that conservation stuff. I want to talk a little bit about that, and also the writing, because I've got your Facebook author page here. And I just expected to find 1 book, but it just seems to go on and on and on. So there is who put it here? Judy put it. I've seen this here. Judy's put, wow, a photographer, a poet, a conservationist. What else, Imelda? Oh. You're an amazing woman. Right, let's have a break. I'm going to mute you just for a couple of minutes while we do this break, and then we can have a bit of a slurp, and then we'll come back and carry on for a few more minutes. All right? Okay. I'll see you in a mo. Wow, it's kind of I've written down loads of stuff here that I want to, but I'm just kind of, it just takes you, doesn't it? I can't believe the reaction when I first brought Imelda in. Wow, did not see that coming. That really sideswiped me. But let's have a short break. I'll play a quick video, and then we'll come back and ask a few more things, because I'm working my way through it. I'll get most of the way through, but back in a mo. God, truth be told, that went on longer than I thought it was going to go on for. But blimey, let's bring Imelda back in. Right, there was a couple of two things I wanted to kind of just finish off on this part, if you're okay, Imelda. Was Jean-Francois, who has put here, are there any models that didn't make it? If so, how their families reacted, and that surely is a legacy of their battle.
Yeah, there are. I'm not in contact with all of the families. A lot of the people were just with me. I became quite good friends with one of my models. She passed away, must have been about 6 months ago now. Like I said, Scott, he died just after I finished the fellowship panel. And one of them who didn't make it is actually a photographer, Jo. She passed away quite recently. That's Jo. She was wonderful, wonderful lady, and wanted to be part of the project. It was a bit daunting when you've got to photograph another photographer. But yeah, sadly Jo didn't make it. But hopefully, through the book, she can keep making a difference to people.
Absolutely, yeah. And I want to just
not easy.
Not easy. And I want to just find this one here. I wanted to just finish off, because obviously you read out the poem there, but there was one here that I wanted to bring, and it's this gentleman here. This is Paul, and I just wanted to read this out, if you're okay, because like Judy said earlier on, it's men can get breast cancer, but Paul didn't have breast cancer, or didn't have it when he was going through all his treatment. But this is what Paul's written here in the book. I have grade 4 brain tumour. I was told I didn't have long to live, but I'm still alive after 4 years. Some days I feel really good. I realise that I'm not the only person with problems. There are many people, young and old, who have a range of problems. I'm not alone. There are other days when I feel really unhappy, and I think it's pointless carrying on. It's difficult to stop feeling this way, but I do try very hard to be positive. I am glad I've been alive for longer than anyone expected. However, I hate being in limbo, waiting for the regular scan results. This isn't the life I wanted, but it's the life I've got. Wow.
Tough one, yeah. Unfortunately, I have lost contact with Paul and his wife. I knew them through Paula, who sadly passed away. And I've lost contact with Paul's wife since then. So I have no idea what's happened to Paul.
Do you know what? Like you say, despite that, life happens, doesn't it? We all kind of move on in different directions and stuff like that. But there's a friend of ours, me and my wife, we've got a very good friend of ours called Keith, and he says that you meet people for 3 purposes in life: a reason. Well, you meet people for a reason, a season, or for life. And maybe you met Paul for a reason, and that reason is that he can be in this particular book here and do like you said that Jo has done by her writing her piece and her picture in this book here. That will always be there now. Will always be there to help people. Just like now Andy, he's ordered that book. His wife will read that. She'll read the pieces by those 2 people, and it's kind of like their legacy continues, doesn't it? So I think what you've done there, you have been. And I really do think you should continue to be highly commended for doing that. Incredibly brave, but massively important. So if I had a hat off, I would doff it to you right now. But there's other sides to you. As Judy said, what else do you do? So there's the conservation side of things. So, and also the writing. But tell me about the writing. Because look, if I show my screen here, this is Imelda's author page, where I expected to just see this book here, this Facing the Monster book. But look at all these little books here. But what I find interesting about your books, Imelda, is that every one of them has got a purpose. They're not books just telling stories. They are there for a particular purpose. So that you've got books there to help about the conservation side of it, but then you've got the books to help children deal with big issues like coronavirus, dealing with cancer, and also the loss of a loved one. Where did all that come from? Was the writer always in you, despite you said that publicist there said you need to write this book about the cancer? But was it always there? Was it something you always did?
I loved creative writing at school. I I went back and I spoke at my primary school. I read one of the rhino books and spoke to them about rhino conservation back in Cape Town. And my very first story, if you can call it a story, was published in the school magazine when I was 7. And the story was something like when we had to write about what we did at the weekend. And I said, at the weekend, I went with my cousins to the safari park. While we were there, there was a giraffe and my uncle wound down the window. The giraffe stuck its head in, and my little cousin Laurie, who was only 5, got such a fright, he did a smell. And that was the story that got published. So that was the beginning of my writing career.
He did a smell. Brilliant.
And they published it in the school magazine. But yeah,
Wow.
but I loved creative writing at school as well. And obviously it kind of went by the wayside, and life took over as it does. And then I think it was, well, obviously I'd done the cancer thing, and then when COVID came along, I just thought, if I can write something, maybe it'll help kids understand, because I know my kids were quite confused by it all, as were a lot of their friends. So I wrote the 2 COVID books, and then obviously I thought, well, if we can, with helping with people, I've been through cancer, so let's continue. So I carried on, and I wrote and illustrated most of them myself.
Wow.
When Grandad had to go away, that's actually dedicated. I wrote that. I don't know if you remember Andrew Appleton.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
I wrote that when I was grieving for Andrew, because Andrew basically got me going in my photography. Way back, I met him, was one of the first people I ever met in the photography industry. So I was very affected when he died. I sort of wrote the book. And obviously I was going through the emotions.
He had a big impact on a lot of people. He was all,
he did.
I always remember Andrew, whenever you'd be at shows and stuff like that, there he would be on his stand with his usual kind of stuff there, and always that big smile. He always had a big smile.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
When we lost him, and it was very unexpected. I mean, I know a good friend of ours, Pete Morgan. He had a very good relationship with Andrew. He was devastated, as were many people. But Peter, yourself, were obviously a lot closer to him than a lot of others.
Yeah. So no, it was a huge shock. But I mean, I always said to Andrew, he got me on the path. I was my first ever award was after I did his complete photographer course, and he gave me the confidence to pursue photography. So it was a huge thing.
Timing kind of escapes me. It's scary how quick, as you get older, how quick time does go by. But I'm just trying to think now, when we did lose Andrew, and then I'm kind of thinking of the timings of you with your the project, the book, getting your fellowship. When was he around to see that? Was he able to witness that?
Yes, he must have seen my fellowship. Yes, he was there. He did see my fellowship panel.
Wonderful.
Didn't see me write books or anything, but he did see my fellowship panel.
Wonderful. What a lovely journey for him to see you go from taking you from start to that point. What a lovely thing for him to do.
Yeah. I know. I'll be forever grateful for him. I mean, never stop thinking about him. He'll always be in the back of my mind. I can hear him.
Absolutely, yeah. What a legacy! What a legacy! Yeah. So there's other books as well. Then, so there's the children's books. There's this one here which I've ordered as well. I've got 2 books on my bookshelf now by Imelda Bell. How cool is that? Actually, another thing. Do you know what? Another thing I'm looking at, because what I love doing. Let's bring up your website here. Look, one thing I love doing is having pictures on my wall in my office, my workspace, that aren't pictures that I've done. And it's just ones I was really intrigued. Where are those ones? There's artwork that you've done. There's some beautiful artwork. Trying to find, shop. Here we go. Let's go to the shop. And there was some stuff. This stuff here. That's
just AI. So it's just AI created from prompts. So it doesn't always get it right.
Are you telling me it's not a skill to type words in?
It's amazing. You do get some really strange looking animals if you try AI with animals.
Yeah, it's when people say, could you do another one like that with exactly the same character, but actually, no, I can't. Because it might come up with something completely different. That's the only thing.
But no, I've always been creative, like expressing myself through art and music. I haven't played music for years, but I was a musician growing up. So I've during COVID, obviously you've got Charlie. We suddenly had all this time to experiment and do. So I went and did a few online drawing courses and things, and just had a play, and obviously wrote the books.
Yeah.
And then I think it was before I wasn't yet a trustee, but they'd been using my photos for what was Revolution UK.
Mm-hmm.
So they then said to me, because I'd written the other books, well, could you write one on rhinos? So I did a load of research, and the idea was to aim it at kids, local kids, who could, we were looking at the idea, so the two versions, Malembe means rhino, but it's the rhino totem, and I did the rhino tail. It's the same story, but one's for younger kids, but basically exploring the ideas of totems and spirit animals, and the idea that we should be protecting them and the planet. So that became the rhino totem. And then they asked me to write the pangolin one, which none of my photos, I've never been lucky enough to see a pangolin, but I got permission to use a load of different photographs, and obviously I photoshopped and put all sorts of silly effects on them, like lions with weird eyes with the smell from pangolins and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then I became friendly through conservation with a guy called James Mwenda. He was one of the caretakers for, there are literally 2 northern white rhinos left in the whole world. He was caretaker for them and the previous 2 before they died. There are 2 females left now, but he'd started out again, a young kid with living in poverty in Kenya, and started off as a tea-boy doing his thing and worked his way up, and he actually now runs his own tour company in Kenya. So he inspired me to do the Walking with Rhinos, which tells the story of the last 2 northern white rhinos in the world. And then from that, I then got asked, there was a rhino that was poached, I think it was 2012. My dates don't stick in my brain. Yeah, so that was Tundi. So that was the game reserve in 𝐾𝐻𝐿, which is called 𝐾𝐻𝐿, sorry, it's in the Eastern Cape in South Africa. And 3 rhinos were poached in one night. They have no idea how they got in. They can't find how they got through. They didn't shoot, or they used veterinary drugs too much. So one of them died that night, and they found the 2 still alive the next morning, but horrific injuries. Sadly, Temba, I mean, it's a story of love and hope. Tundi means love, and Temba means hope. So I kind of used those emotions in the story to tell about them. But sadly, Temba didn't make it. He died on day 23, and actually they found out since he would never have made it. He'd been down too long, and basically he cut off the blood supply to his legs for too long, so he was not going to make it, and they didn't know it at the time. But they did their best for him. But Tundi, against all odds, made it. She had endless skin grafts and things. Literally, I mean, the video, if you look it up, I can only watch it because I know that she survived. So I went out, my husband and I, they hosted us at 𝐾𝐻𝐿, and we went to go and meet Tundi. A lot of searching. After 3 days, we finally found her.
That was emotional as well, wasn't it?
Oh, it was, yeah. No, I did cry when I saw her. But we went to when I was researching the book, I went to all different places. So where she'd been found, where Temba had been found, where Temba sadly passed away, and where his grave was, all the different sites, so that I could then write the story for them. And I don't, all the money I make from them goes to the 𝐾𝐻𝐿 Foundation. The different money goes to different charities depending on what the book is. Just to try and educate people and try and get the word out there. And
that's what's wonderful about this. I mean, is the fact that you've written such a sad story about what happened there, but you've written it in a way that it's kind of, children are able to digest it. Do you know what I mean? It's not a traumatic read for children. It kind of gets the message across without traumatizing them. So I mean that's a real skill with all the books that you've got there that are approaching certain things for kids. But you know, that's real.
My mother
stuff.
Illustrated that and Walking with Rhinos. That's Walking with Rhinos. My mother illustrated. I don't know which way I'm going.
What a sickeningly talented family you are.
So my mum did those paintings for those. But yeah, just hoping to make a difference. And now I do photography still for myself. Left the business behind. I think obviously first I had the blow to my business with my cancer diagnosis. And then I was just getting back on my feet, and COVID came along and plummeted back down, straight down again. And it just got me thinking, do you know what? Where do I want to be? What do I want to do? And I felt like I wanted to try and do something. And as I said earlier, as a kid, I'd wanted to, I loved animals, wanted to be somehow into nature, and I had wanted to do it back in South Africa, but I actually started volunteering at one of the both of the Aspinall Foundation's parks, Howletts and Port Lim here in Kent. And then I now actually work there as a safari driver. So I drive great big ex-army trucks, take people on safari, and tell cheesy jokes and tell them all about animals. So it's sort of, and then I still do.
I say, now that the photography is kind of, you're not doing it as a business then, if you like. I think I know the answer to this. But now that you're not doing it as a business, there's not all that businessy stuff to think about. When you do get the camera in your hand and you take some pictures, do you enjoy it more?
I do, yes.
Yeah, I thought you
because
would.
I'm doing it when I want to do it. I helped with the marketing campaign at work, a summer marketing campaign, where my Photoshop skills came in handy because it was a dreadful day. We rescheduled, and eventually we just had to shoot on this horrible, dreary day. And they say don't work with children and animals, but the giraffe, they did not want to play ball, and I ended up photographing them in one place and then cutting them out and photoshopping them back into next to the vehicle we wanted them with.
Photoshop's a wonderful thing.
So it is, isn't it?
It really is. It really, really is. Well, listen,
so I do odd bits for work.
That's good to hear. I knew that you'd enjoy it more now that there's not the pressures and the stresses of having to run a business. So, good. Yeah. And let's face it, you're now doing 3 things there that you love combining. When you're writing, you love your writing, your conservation, your photography's there as well. So what better when you're combining all those 3 things without the stress and the hassle of having a business, putting those three things together, that's match made in heaven there, isn't it, really? Let's face it.
It is, yeah. Trust me, cool. And if you work with animals, the pay is absolutely rubbish, but I love going to work. I love talking to people about the animals, and hopefully make a difference to a few people and get them kids thinking about saving the planet and saving rhinos and other animals as well.
Yeah, good on you. You are, like I said at the start there, you are a bit of a powerhouse. You are. You probably won't accept that, but you are thinking what you've gone through, and then while you're going through that, you do. How can I help other people? I could do a portrait series, and then you go on to the conservation. It's just go, and that's a real strength of character there. It really does. So,
I think it helps me.
Yeah,
it's me feeling like I'm doing something. It helps with self-esteem. It helps me to keep going. So it is selfish in a way because I'm doing it for me. So just
why not?
Yeah.
Other people are benefiting, so you carry on doing it for you. That's what I say. Listen, I'm just going to quickly bring this up here. I don't think they're questions, but I'll bring it up anyway because it is a graphic, and I just kind of like that. It's a happy graphic. I'll bring that up because there's just a few comments I wanted to have a quick look at here. I mean, these all remain with this broadcast anyway because I'm not going to do any editing to it. But there's just a few things I wanted to just quickly mention that are in here. Linda N has put, this is inspiring, giving people such hope and strength. I was told with the loss of my teacher, take all of her teachings and help others, which I'm now doing since 2009. Thank you again. Good on you, Linda. Nice to see. Deborah, a regular viewer here. Deborah's put, I'm speechless with deep admiration for you and the project. So real and deep. And it just goes on and on. Ian saying thank you. Rose here, very interesting with some new ideas. There's, loads and loads of comments. And like I say, you'll get to see those more and more. But you know what? I mean, this one here,
later.
I love that. I love that one there, Andy, putting that. That's fantastic. That is wonderful to see.
I wish her well, and I hope it gives her just eases her mind a little bit.
Absolutely, but fantastic that he wouldn't have known about the book had you not agreed to come on and do this for us. So, brilliant.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying yes. Valerie here has put, humour is great to fight cancer. My late mum used humour. Sometimes the doctors didn't understand the humour.
No. As long as she did, and it helped her. It is therapeutic humour.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, listen, Imelda, we'll call it now. I've kept you longer than I said I would, but there was so much
That's
I wanted
fine.
to find out, and there is more that I'd love to ask you, but I'm conscious of time here. So, where would you say is the best, apart from places like the main website, where would you say is a good place for people to keep up with what you're doing? Not necessarily with the photography side of it, but with the conservation side of it as well.
Either my website or we've got rhinorescueuk.org is the rhino rescue. I look after that. It doesn't get updated all that regularly with everything else I'm doing. But we've also got a website called thecrash.co.uk. A herd of rhinos is a crash of rhinos. So it's a web, a crash of rhinos. So the crash.co.uk is an educational resource that we created through Rhino Rescue UK, just to give kids information about rhinos and again, hopefully inspire them to shout out and try and save them.
I'm trying to bring that up here. I can't bring it up. I've typed it in wrong. I'm going to put all the details in the. I'll put them in the blog, in the description part, and the blog post as well. But Imelda, listen, thank you so much for doing this.
Absolute pleasure.
Brave, inspiring, just to bare your soul like that, to go through when you're going through what you did, I think is just incredible, but so beneficial for everybody else. Do you know what I mean? Very a selfless thing to do. Despite you saying it helped you, it was incredibly selfless of you to do it. But thank you from me, and clearly from a very impacted group of people watching this. Thank you so much. I mean, the comments are still coming in now.
Thank you so much for listening to me.
Wonderful. Right, don't disappear. Go into the virtual green room, and I'll see you. But thank you from me, and thank you from everybody in the chat.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Not at all.
Bye-bye, everyone.
I'll see you in a mo. All right.
Yep. Okay.
Wow. Okay. I had a plan right from the very start. Right, I'll ask this, and then when that started, and I did the slideshow, that all went out of the window, didn't it? But I think I recovered. There's lots I wanted to ask, but I scribbled it all down here. But it was lovely to see your comments coming in there. Thank you so much for that. Right, okay, let's wrap this up. A little bit of admin. As I said, Photoshop Virtual Summit 6 is 8 days away. Grab your free pass or get the VIP access pass using that link just there. What else did I want to tell you? Little things to... Oh, yeah, subscribe. That was one thing I always forget to do. So click on subscribe, which should say follow. There won't be a live next week. I know it's a little bit hit and miss last couple of weeks or so, isn't it? I won't be alive this coming Sunday because I won't be around. I'm going to be elsewhere. And if you follow me on social, you'll see where I am. I will be posting where I am, but I won't say anything just yet. But... yeah, I shall tell you all about it when I get back. And the other thing was to let you know that there will be one the following week, and that is on Sunday, the 17th of November, with my friend, Roderick Ariasman, known as Draco Rubio, if you follow him on social media. My God, what a creative fella he is. This guy, I've never asked him where he gets his ideas from. And when you look at his pictures, you really do think, where the hell does he get his ideas from? Because they're just off the wall, crazy stuff, which is just incredibly creative, really creative. But there's also some serious stuff he does as well. So I'm looking forward to chatting to him, finding out how he does what he does, his process. But I'm also going to get him to show us some of his retouching, because his retouching is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So that I'm really looking forward to. But that's pretty much all I've got for you this week. I think that was enough, wasn't it? Eh? I'm going to finish off by showing Imelda's slideshow again. And then I shall bid you farewell. I shall look forward to seeing you on the 17th with Roderick Draco Rubio. My thanks to Imelda. I'll catch her in the green room. And my thanks to you for, again, joining me on a Sunday evening, morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. And thanks for making the chat room so active with some wonderful comments. So I shall see you in 2 weeks' time.